Happy Thursday, everyone. We're going to give people here about a minute or so to get settled, and then we'll get started immediately. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join our webcast. My name is Mateo Castillo. I'm the marketing manager here at Oritas, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, SAP Archiving and Retention Perfection, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, everyone should already be able to see my screen, and although viewers are muted, we highly encourage you to ask questions throughout the presentation via the questions box. At the end of this presentation, our speakers will try to answer as many questions as possible during the Q&A portion of our webinar. Now allow me to briefly introduce today's presenters. Today with us is Deepak Sood, CEO of Oritas. Deepak has been a data and content management expert for 23 years now. He has presented at various SAP events and frequently lends his expertise to enterprise business leaders. And me, your host, Mateo Castillo, the marketing manager here at Oritas. I began my career within the technology and software space. My experience within the B2B marketing includes marketing AI automation solutions, as well as core and land record management software. Now, we have a lot of new individuals joining us today, so if you're not familiar with who Oritas is, we were founded in 2003 and have been in business for about 18 years. We're headquartered right outside of Orlando, Florida, and are well-known within the SAP ecosystem as the data process and content management experts. We are thought leaders in the industry and specialize in delivering complex EIM, ECM, ILM, and SAP HANA optimization solutions. Now, we're known for leveraging our decades of SAP and OpenText expertise to maximize the use of native functionality, allowing our customers to do more with less. We stress the phrase process before technology, and that's largely in part due to the Oritas vision, which is to help you implement an overall data management strategy to meet your digital transformation goals. On the next slide here, we have a diagram of the intelligent enterprise. Now, many of you today may already be familiar with this slide and what it represents, but as a brief overview, you can see here the intelligent enterprise is made up of three critical components: the application layer, the analytics layer, and the data management layer. At the bottom of the screen here in red, you can see how Oritas fits perfectly within the data management layer. Most of our solutions leverage EIM, ILM, and ECM technologies. At the top of the screen, you'll see how we are deeply embedded within your digital core. We have unique abilities and experience in optimizing procure-to-pay and order-to-cash processes. We offer solutions for any kind of digital transformation initiatives related to mergers and acquisitions, system divesting, or implementing S/4HANA. ILM is a required prerequisite by SAP. If you look at the bottom right section of the screen, you can see all the solutions we provide for that initiative. From what you can see, Oritas is the one-stop shop for all your data management needs. No other vendor in the market does what we do at this scale and in such a holistic view. Now, to walk you through our agenda for today. Our first topic today will be a brief introduction to ILM and what it is. Next, we'll jump into understanding the benefits of ILM implementation, the good, followed by the challenges of implementing ILM, the bad, and then the ugly consequences of not implementing ILM. And our last topic, achieving perfection, where we'll review reducing the cost and complexity of your IT landscape, having control over your data and mitigating risk to stay compliant, implementing an automated approach to ILM, and accelerating your transition to S/4HANA while lowering the cost. Finally, we'll wrap things up with an audience Q&A, where we'll answer the questions provided in the chat box and our pre-webinar survey. Now, I have already spoken to many of you, and we look forward to answering many of the questions you've asked prior to this presentation. But as a reminder, if you haven't had a chance to ask questions or if one pops into your head during this webinar, please feel free to drop it in the questions box and we'll answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Throughout the webinar, we may ask a few poll questions. We use these to best tailor our webinars and our messaging to you, our audience. It is also worth mentioning, we have some collateral for you to download. These are the two most recent case studies and a spec sheet on our ILM solutions. Simply click the handouts tab on the screen and you should have access to those. And now I'll be passing it off to Deepak Sood, our CEO, who will be walking you through a brief introduction to ILM.
Thank you, Mateo. Hello, everyone. I wish you a great Thursday and an upcoming weekend, and hopefully the weather, wherever you are, is going to participate with you, and then you can have a really great, day. Here are some of the drivers. I mean, this is a slide that I have, utilized for quite some time. And I still find over the years, this is a really valuable slide from a concept of data management. What are your data management drivers? And why should you be looking at tools and technologies for segmenting the data? And is it true that, many times, we say that, as we are evolving into the newer landscape, whether it is with HANA, whether it is S4 HANA, or for that matter, linking or going in the system of BW, or now, the BW on cloud, do these techniques still make sense? In the rest of this webinar, I'm going to try to show you what is the value proposition. Where does this make such a convincing argument that data tiering now has become even more important, whether it is linked with performance, whether it is linked with size and growth, and even more, whether it is linked with compliance and privacy. So all of those things come together, and we have customers who are saying, well, I'm using it for even, doing my data, addressing my data pollution. So these are all the drivers that come into play. But you will find many times questions are being asked in the organization that where do I implement these things? What are the drivers? What are the convincing events in my organization that will make me think that, you know what, maybe, just maybe I need to do this exercise? Mergers and acquisitions. We have passed through a tough time from COVID, and as you can see, there is still a lot of flux in the industry. You will find that these, financial transactions are going to pick up. There are going to be a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and in that same process, there are going to be some divestiture happening. ILM solution, from a data tiering perspective, from system landscape optimization perspective, is able to help you. It is able to manage manage your active system, or for that matter, if you have legacy system, it is able to address those requirements also. How does it come into play? I'm going to cover that part in follow-on slides. Business process optimization. Typical process around handling data, handling performance, handling retention compliance. All very core value adds or values for a solution like ILM, and that is something that you need to look into. And last but not the least, consolidation of the IT landscape. A very unique proposition in that area. Many times company says, well, I'm going into my S4 journey and I'm doing system consolidations. I have multiple systems that I'm going to consolidate onto a single platform. And I'm going to try to show you how tools like ILM can add a huge value in that area. So let's begin. Let's get into the journey of why and how we do it. And then we're going to go into, looking at all of those things segment by segment. Believe it or not, this is what majority of the organizations look like. You have a record retention policy. You have an SAP system. But when we go talk to them, you might have addressed a certain basis related data. You might have done some IDOC archiving and all. But for the most part, you are keeping years and years of worth of data in your environment. And it is all sitting in your active database. Maybe a conventional or the existing databases like the Oracles and the DB2s and the SQL, or maybe the system like a HANA platform that you're using. Well, what is an ideal state? This is what your ideal state is. You should be having a fraction of that data onto your active platform. This is not what I am suggesting. This is a slide from SAP. They say, if you want the full value coming out of your platform, data tiering is a requisite. It's a hard requisite for you to have a really good response time coming out of your system, and you want to tier this data into the hot, warm, cold. They used to say the concept, exactly the same. That's what you want to do. But now you're going to also find that it is adding, even another financial component into the whole, dimension. I don't know if you have seen certain news articles that are coming up where, it is coming to a point that companies are now realizing that their cloud deployments are now becoming expensive. And if you're interested in, do a quick Google and you'll see those answers or those articles coming up. What is happening is that although the solution to deploy, to manage on cloud is there, but with system copies, with even the system utilizations, whether it is processing time, network traffic, system volume, your hosting of those systems onto the cloud platform is now becoming really expensive. What is the solution? Well, the solution is that I should keep the data in my system, in my active system for processing that information, the one which is really active, the one where I do the business transactions. For the data that is historical for me, where I have to use it maybe once a month and all, I can still access it with the same screens and all, but I should not be searching and processing it day in and day out. And the data which has expired its compliance, it's your retention requirements or your privacy requirement, well, get rid of it. Or the legal term is do the defensible disposition. So these are all the things you want to address. And last but not the least, if you have legacy platforms and you are keep on running because you think that they are running in some corner of your, of your data center or being hosted somewhere, well, they are adding cost, and you have the ability to address that also. So how do we address these pieces? We address all of those pieces with very simplistic solutions around size and complexity. We address what areas you want to address. We define the life and the business continuity of that data in your system. And then eventually, based on your regulatory requirements, we are also able to address how you are able to defensively dispose that. So let me show you the progression of this process. This is how this exercise goes. For those of you who know what data archiving is, I have some basic concepts in the screen that I'm going to show you, as we go further. But the concept behind it is that we're going to compress the data, store it onto a secondary medium, but your access is seamless out there. And this is what data archiving brings you. But then your archive files are sitting still compressed, but you still are holding them for an extended period of time. Different countries have different requirements of how long you should be holding that data. And after that, that data could become potentially toxic for your organization. And this is where ILM comes into play, and you suggest that, and we suggest actually, that you should be defensively disposing that data or purging that information so that you do not have to worry about it. Now, remember, early on, I talked about legacy system decommissioning, system consolidation. This is now the next game where you do system consolidation, and for your historical system, you do system decommissioning. Not only for your SAP system, if there are requirements for non-SAP system, this too is able to address all of those requirements. So how does it add up in the whole scheme of things? How does it all come together? This is what you're looking at. You have three scenarios, and I'm going to give you some examples, real life examples for the companies when they were looking at their data, and some of them were on-premise and some of them are cloud, and they said, really, this is the ROI? You will find that these projects have very strong ROI. Some of them, you can realize an ROI of 4 to 5 months, which is, not many projects give you those kind of ROIs. So if you're not doing archiving, this is the conventional process that you're going to be looking at. Not only that, if you have an increase in your business productivity and you're increasing your business and transactions and all, this could become even more parabolic for you and go even faster or even higher in your organization. The secondary piece is where you are doing the archiving. So yes, if you look, when you started archiving versus over the years, the gap is huge. It is still growing. Your ultimate growth is to achieve a zero-sum growth if possible. But what you will find is that, of course, the archive files are also getting aggregated and they are getting compressed, but you are still holding on to that data. And if you do ILM, where you have your retention policies, that's where you are able to stabilize and get to a horizontal level in your organization. And this is what you want to achieve and get your whole system in a secure state. So how do we do it? The process around ILM requires finding what data you want to address in the system automatically from a compliance perspective and all. That is the toughest piece, by the way, in the system. Tagging it, let the system do it for you automatically, linking it with the retention needs that you have. So for example, for United States finance, well, I have to hold it for 7 years, but in Canada, it could be 8, and in Mexico could be 10, or in China could be 10 or more years. Linking it out there for those systems. If there is a requirement for sequestering, encrypting, we go forward with that. And eventually, when the retention has expired, let the system do their job, automatically purging the data, not only your active records from the system, but also the metadata, also the linked documents that might be associated with it. All of those things can be addressed using the retention policy. So this is the value add. How do we think that this can be done in a holistic manner? You will find that we're going to share with you, there are a lot of challenges, and companies, some of them are realistic challenges, other areas are more conceivable or challenges that, the business presents itself into it. But for us to simplify this whole process for any organization, we have brought it down to the 6 R's. We say that if, as an organization, you have addressed these 6 R's for doing the ILM implementation, I think for the most part, you have this project under control. Granted, there are a lot of complexities. You are doing data relocation. You are doing data management, again, presenting the idea that you will have seamless access to that information. And it is absolutely there, and we can help you on that part. But our core objective is to make sure we define the residence, we define the retention based on your legal and record retention policy. We provide seamless access to the information, no matter what platform you're using on that. Reporting, a critical piece. Legacy or an active platform, how does it come? And if at all you have some exceptions handling around certain kind of restrictions for data to archive, or I'll give you another restriction, another unique example. Many times we are being asked like, look, my data is getting archived, but many times I go back and I have to do reversals, restatements, intercompany postings. Are you able to do it out of the box, using these things? No, not necessarily. But there are these enhanced procedures that we have built working with over 300 customers where we are able to address those needs. We are able to address your requirements for posting by reference or archiving from the last piece requirement out here, archiving data from the custom tables if you have done that work, or table extensions. We lately found one example where the customer is on S/4HANA, and they have built a lot of reportings to enhance their or to provide their users with a really responsive solutions in their system. But what they are doing is they are building calculation views. Now, for those of you who are in this domain and have seen that, calculation view is a totally new dimension. It is not an ABAP-based function. Calculation views could start at the HANA layer, where you are building those views, accessing the data from the tables, and presenting it back to the users. The question is, if I do data management at all, can I address the calculation views? Can I archive enable those views and have seamless access to the information? Of course we can. And we have built these unique processes. Of course, they are not right out of the box, but we have built it, presented it to different organizations, and they are successfully able to do all of those functions in spite of all the new functions and complexities that are coming along. So these are all the things that we say that, conventionally, we have seen that organizations see right away a reduction of up to 36% of their database size, even by doing bare minimal up to maybe 6 archiving objects in the system. You're also able to, extend the life of your HANA hardware by 30%, and I'll show you how that comes through. And also, there is a strong ROI for doing any kind of future expansions and the ROI out of your system.
Now, let me stop you right there, Deepak.
Sure.
You've been doing great, and thank you. But we have our first poll going out right now, and that is, when did you go live with SAP? So to everyone listening, please go ahead and answer that, and Deepak will then later share the results. Okay, we have results coming in, and a lot of people before 2000, and a lot of people from 2001 to 2010. Okay, we'll leave it about maybe 30 more seconds to collect.
Matteo, you will have to share the results because I cannot see the outcome. So if you can do that, I'll appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, I'll share that as soon as we're done. I'm going to go ahead and close it now. And with 72% voting in, here are the results.
Wow. Okay. That's a very interesting distribution out here. We have all folks out here who are really in the domain or in an area where they have their SAP system for quite some time. I hope that you have done some kind of data management exercise, or maybe the next poll will ask that, have you done any kind of activity in this space? And have you realized the benefit out of it? But thank you, Matteo. So
Absolutely.
what are the benefits that we are looking at, in the data management process? Of course, you will get the volume management. Here are the quantifiable things. And again, we do this complementary analysis, and we are able to tell you quantifiable outcome. And I'll show you some screenshots of it, how you are able to address your data volume needs. If you're looking at, also addressing the compliance needs, we are able to address those needs and provide you with the details around that. But even more, you will find that you have an automation requirement in this exercise. You will find that, of course, you can go live with these objects. And for those of you who have data older than, SAP systems went live before 10 years, if you are doing some kind of exercise, you will agree with me that, there are many times you will find that you did this exercise, you saw the value coming out of it, and then you said, well, I'm going to run these jobs maybe quarterly, and they fall off your schedule because you cannot automate them. We have built tools around it where we have fully automated those processes. You do not need human intervention anymore. We can automate these processes for you, whereby you define the criteria, and come the time, whether you're using an automatic inbuilt scheduler or a third-party scheduler, the system will build the variant, address it, and run the jobs for you and present a holistic output for you. This is what was done, and this is how it is handled. So you have all of those things available to you off your fingertips without actually doing it on day in and day out basis. So this is a customer, an actual customer, where we did the DB analysis for them. And we found out that if they did not do data archiving, by year 7, their HANA system would be going in excess of 50.76 terabytes. They don't even know if there is any vendor, cloud service provider, or anybody who is able to provide that big of a single tenant. And that was a big predicament for them, that should they be even going towards this kind of architecture where they were consolidating their companies onto a single platform. So now comes the area where we said, okay, let's look at the data management techniques. And we went with a very conservative level of implementing certain archiving objects. Look at what their value proposition was. They realized that after 7 years, they're going to be somewhere around 27 terabytes. Now, as they are expanding in that area, they also realized that if they do ILM, and we were looking at their retention policy, and that took some time, and that's why I'm not sharing that need. They were able to reduce this data by over 40%. So here, this graph should tell you what a strong ROI you can get doing these techniques. And this is how we present all of those guidelines for you. Like, look, your system is the way it is distributed right now. The basis is around 30%. This is a utility company, so ISU data is around 25%. There is no need for an organization to have basis-related data that occupies 30%. This is a really valuable system that you have. Your distribution out here should be maybe 3, maybe 5%. And 30% is a pure wastage. And this is where we address those things. How do we address those things? We itemize those things for you. Well, basis, maybe around 2.6 terabytes of data, can be addressed by implementing 6 objects. And these 6 objects can be implemented in a very short time. So right away, you see how the value proposition comes. Well, you might ask me that, okay, people, you're giving me this savings, but how will my system look like? What would be the outcome of it if I do this exercise? We build these solutions on even cloud platform, SAP cloud platform, also called the business technology platform. Now we are able to tell you, this is your current distribution across different modules. Once you go live with it, this is how your data is going to look like. This is all stacked together. I'm just giving you a screenshot. So if you hover over it onto our solution that we bring together as part of our deployment, you will be able to see the details of it. Or in another way, we also present these guidelines in a pie-shaped matrix that you can see how any volume. Right now, your controlling data looks the distribution to be around 4.66%. In future, it's going to be 4% after you have done the archiving. It doesn't look like it's a small, small change, but it is a change. But here is the thing that might be intriguing to you. Look at FI. I did archiving, your current system is 3.13.88, but after archiving, it went up. It's not a bad thing. Actually, it's a good thing. You are using your data for your transactional purposes, for the active system, and now your basis related data, which represented around 30%, 29.62, has gone down. And this is what we can provide you as the value add, as how the system is going to look like. And this is what will put all of those processes into play. So here are the other additional values that I have verbally expressed to you, but I want to share with you also in a written format, that you are able to manage your footprint. You are able to address the requirements from storage needs, and from a compliance need perspective, you are able to address the downtime, and also you are able to manage your storage footprint in a lot more effective manner. So this is what the current system looks like. And once you have your data management needs addressed, your hardware, your license cost, your downtime, your data pollution and compliance needs, imagine how efficient your system is on the right-hand side. The red tier is the only active platform that you are paying for. Rest is all archive data, but keeping in mind, you have seamless access to that information, and this is how you are able to make the whole process a lot more predictable in your environment. You are able to achieve the zero-sum growth using these activities. And, of course, we will give you, success stories. We will provide you the ROI that comes along with that. This is all we present to you to make sure that you have all of those things equipped, and now you have a target to meet. And once you implement with us, you are able to address all of those requirements. So, and here's an example of
now that we're getting into the success story, we wanted to launch our second poll. So for all our listeners, second poll is up. And this question is, how big is your ERP database? We'll give about 30 seconds to collect, or until we get 100% voting in. Right now we're at 22, 28. Now a lot of people are saying it's over 3 terabytes. 41% voting in, 60% voting in. We'll give it here just a couple more seconds. And with 65% voting in, here are the results.
Wow, so majority of you have data over 3 terabytes. That's, again, it validates the point that your go live was early, you are aggregating data, and you will be ideal organizations of implementing the solution in your organization, and putting the solution together. Matteo, can you close the poll, please, so that I can show you the next success story? So here is a success story of an organization, 30 terabytes in size, and again, since majority of you are saying that you have data over 3 terabytes, you can relate to that. They were again looking into moving towards S4, and they found that, they had implemented over 21 different archiving objects already. When we engaged with them, we were looking at how we will be able to address their needs, even exporting their indexes and managing their indexes. Some of the tables were over 10 billion rows within a single table, which, by the way, on the HANA side, there are some limitations that are linked along with that you can't have a single table for that. So when we addressed this exercise with them, we were able to bring their system down to around 7 terabytes onto the HANA platform. They realized such a strong ROI. Here is an example that we are showing to you. They realized that, and again, it'll take me some time to give you the overall, distribution of this piece, but I will take your focus towards ROI just on the hardware. That, it's a large organization. They found that they can save about $8.1 million just in the hardware savings doing these data management activities. And these implementation costs on these projects is a fraction of that price. So you will agree with me that these things present a really strong ROI for doing this work. And this is a realistic example. If you need more details from the customer or a reference, I'll be happy to provide you that information also. So let's move on. Let's move on into an area, what are the challenges? How are you going to find that, you're going to implement that? And, what comes as the piece that is the biggest impediment to put these things together? Well, governance. Who owns governance in your environment? Is it legal? Is it audit? Is it compliance? Do you have a records management department? Do you have a retention policy? These are all the questions that are come, many times from an IT-driven initiative. You will be thinking about it, that how I'll make it happen. On the top of it, they will give you a legal retention policy, and you will say, how am I going to map it? How am I going to bring it into SAP? So what we do is we bring a certified records manager into the picture that will map that retention policy into the SAP lingo and put all of these processes within your SAP system. And ILM system has got all these now screens where you can map those processes and secure the process of doing the legal hold and disposition and all. And we'll be happy to do a demo and show you all the feature functions that come along with that. Another challenge. Well, how do I prioritize my objects? Mapping, of course, I covered. I have issue with the records do not get archived, or for that matter, I've got so many custom reports. Who's going to archive and enable them? Scheduling and automation. I think I have covered all of those areas with you, but I can assure you, with so many years of working in this space, we have addressed almost all of those requirements. So rather than you discovering, hey, okay, I landed into another challenge and my entire project has been put on hold because somebody made a really small mistake or didn't think about it, we can make you aware of all of those things right up front so that you don't have to fall flat on your face by not addressing those requirements. Other areas you will find, how am I going to address privacy? How am I going to address legal holds? Are my stakeholders going to be working with me and agreeing to all of those areas? We have built different use cases, blogs, and even, the ROI assessment where they will find that this solution will have a really strong value proposition. Finally, to get this project approved, you might have to go to the CFO and say, what is my ROI? I have already shown you ROI. Some of those ROIs are even, between 4 to 5 months, so really strong ROI. But I can give you an example here. I can also give you an example for the cloud solution. We have a cost justification where you can extend the life of your hardware by another year. And on a cloud-based solution, you don't even have to pay for that additional layer considering you are not using that volume. That by itself will pay for the entire project. So we have all of those things to help, get you the archiving project, get going and be successful in your organization. Now, the part where you say, well,
Deepak, sorry to interrupt you again. It's our final poll, and this one is to our audience. When do you plan to migrate to S/4HANA, given everything you've listened, or maybe that things you already had planned in the pipeline? And now we're at 25%, 40%, 50%. All right, everyone's voting very quickly for this one. Okay, I'm about to give it eight more seconds. Okay, and with 75 reporting in, these are the results.
Well, a good number of you, am I reading it correctly, that they don't know what the plans are right now?
Correct.
Right, and another 20%. So, of course, the drivers, but if there is, a future initiative, I'll show you a fishtail graph, which will show you how this becomes a value proposition. So let's close this poll, and I'll show you the fact that if these things are not being addressed correctly, what are the issues that you would be facing now, or you might be already facing them, but you might not have quantified it. I do not want to go through them one by one, but you can see, increased spend on license and hardware, historical data penalties. I mean, with GDPR, California Data Protection Act coming now, there are multiple states, even within the United States and Canada, who are putting their compliance and privacy initiatives. By itself, if you are holding data that you are not supposed to keep, you are putting your company into some kind of a privacy exposure or a legal exposure. And again, I'll be happy to discuss those things with your organization or with you about how this ILM solution will be able to add or provide a value add for all of those things. And if you go into the conventional thought process, higher cost volume. If there is a disaster, data corruptions do happen. And if you have to recover the system, larger the system, the longer it takes for addressing all of your requirements. You're doing an upgrade, patch upgrade, or even if you have to do any kind of upgrade in the system, you will find that your downtime gets bigger and bigger. Your batch windows to do maintenance activities get smaller and smaller. All of those things come into play and becomes a challenge for any organization if you do not have these activities all addressed. Continued higher costs for maintaining the system, declining performance. That is directly related to your productivity of your organization. No matter what system, what SAP system, what version you are in, larger the system, slower time it takes for you to run the reports and all, those things add up. Even if you think that, hey, it's only taking some more seconds for my users to get the output, it adds up depending upon the number of users you have, depending upon how many times they are running the report. That directly impacts the overall productivity of your organization. And also, this is, I would say, an insurance for you. You do not know what kind of penalties you're going to face if you are being asked and to present the data from e-discovery perspective, and you are holding data which is longer than what you should be. So there is a huge cost that could come for being out of compliance. And these are all the things that you can avoid by implementing a solution like an SAP ILM. So how can we address that? Address your historical data. It starts with transactional data, and then it moves on to the master data at the same time. You will be able to address all of your needs, whether it is related to production, sales, or for that matter, any kind of maintenance records. You are able to address your requirements for both data and documents, as well as PI, personal information, as well as personally identifiable information. All of those things can be done in one single go, linked with privacy, governance, classifications, performance, lifecycle management. So this solution has got a lot of value add that comes along with that. Will your users have, challenges, to access the data? First thing comes like, oh, you are archiving, meaning I don't have access to the data. Not true. And I'll show you in some of the screens. And also my team will be happy to do a demo. Data in the current landscape can be totally seamless for your users. They may not even know where it is coming from, online or archive. It is presented holistically for you. And many times they are working on the active data, not even accessing the historical data. And, they would not even see the difference from your standard, or for that matter, even the custom reports. How do I enable my reporting and access? Again, big question. I've got so many custom reports. Are you going to archive enable all my custom reports? Number one, I can archive enable all of your custom reports. I have a tool that can do it really, really fast. But should you be archive enabling all your custom reports? No, you don't have to, and you shouldn't, because you are now at that point, managing another, a large initiative to archive enable all of your custom reports. Instead, this is what I propose. We bring, as part of our consulting, a tool which will identify the reports that your users are running and when did they last run, and what report will be impacted by what archiving object. Now that you know that this is how my user is running the report in this particular module, you can go to that particular user and find out what kind of data I'm running this report with. Am I running a current fiscal year? If you are, don't worry about it. If you're running it for the 6 months, current year, or for the prior year, if you put your residence time for older than 3 years, you don't have to archive enable that report. If the user says that I use this date for a report that is data older than 3 years, okay, now we are talking, and we can very quickly archive enable that report for you. Now, you might ask for report writer reports, report painter reports. Many times I'm being asked, hey, my users run a lot of queries. Can you help me pull the data even for those query-based reports to pull the data from the archives? I can do that. And I can present all of those details for you. Another question being asked, oh, it's going to be slow. You're going to be pulling the data from the archive. Not true. First, if we tier the data and 80% of your time is being used for accessing the data that is online, that is sitting in your database, as a matter of fact, your response time is going to go faster. It's going to be much better than what it is right now. Second, if now you are accessing for 20% of the time, both online and archive data together, there are these functions that SAP has provided that, there would be a delay, but it is so negligible that users don't even notice that. And that amount is, by our standards and by the ROI calculation,
Hey,
you'll
Deepak,
find.
just want to let you know there's a lot of feedback coming from your mic just now.
Is it better now?
Yep, way better.
Okay. So you will find that, those things, the response time that comes, that would be so much better if you have the data tier in the system. And the last piece, the fear of data loss, we do all this analysis and also present before and after, where they can see all their data. How does it look today versus how it is looking after the data has been archived? So all of those things have been, addressed, and you are able to successfully migrate towards a go live process with an ILM solution. So we have also listed all the different activities that you address, here, analysis, solution design, mapping, how you do the discovery, how you test the retention deployment, as well as execution and maintenance of all of those systems. So the idea behind it is that it is not, a mirage. This is not something that we try and see what the outcomes are. This is something that you can put in a proper, approach, a methodology, whether it is a waterfall-based methodology or agile methodology, and you can implement that solution in your environment. And this is a slide that I try to, again, a simple slide, but the idea behind is clear your data and then have seamless access to it no matter where it is. And these are all the functions that have been provided by SAP to you. Now, this is the fishtail slide I was referring to early on. So although you do not have, a good number of you do not have a roadmap for moving towards S4HANA, considering, S4HANA has, the timeline for that has been pushed towards, 2027. But that said, you still have all of those activities that you have to address, whether it is areas around MDG that you're looking at on the first side, data services, which are migration activities, data quality assessment. But I'm going to take your focus towards information lifecycle management out here on the screen. This is what SAP says. These are the prerequisites you have to address. Nearlining is what you do onto your BW systems or BW on HANA, BW for HANA platforms and all. Document access and content management is something that you address for your content management needs, the linked documents. You will also notice that information lifecycle management is the only functionality in this fishtail slide that has been listed twice by SAP, right out here. The SAP is such a huge proponent of making sure that you do all of those activities that they have listed this exercise or this particular solution twice in their slide so that you have a really successful deployment in your environment. And how does it all add up? What we did was we said, okay, let's consider, just like what you said, majority of you, that you will end up going towards S4HANA, but, with no line of sight for right now, and you might be thinking about it in 24, 2025, we backtracked our steps, saying, let's say that you start working on these solutions or go live on this in 2025. If you backtrack that step, whether it is linked with procurement, whether it is linked with funding, whether it is linked with, whether you're going towards cloud or, SAP's private cloud edition or going with now the new area of RISE with SAP, sizing. What should be the right sizing based on which you want to determine how you want to get into it? It's a huge, huge area to determine. It brings you today into 2021. This is where you want to make sure you address your data management needs, whether it is ILM, whether it is content management. And once you address that, this year, once you address that, you have a really predictable way of addressing your implementation towards S4HANA. And this is what we have found. Typically, any organization who is moving from one system to another will see a reduction between 30 to 50%, even before they realize the compression or what promises S4HANA has with overall reduction. You see a reduction of 30 to 50% in their system with the archiving process itself. And this is something that has been also addressed and confirmed by Dr. Hasso Plattner and his the book that he has published of the in-memory revolution, if you say out there, he will talk about the fact that how data tiering is an important factor of putting all of this solution together. So I hope that you have seen how we address all of those requirements from different techniques, different areas that we put together in the system, whether it is ILM and data archiving, whether it is the business impact, whether it is the fact that we bring a lot of utilities in your ecosystem to make this whole process seamless, a lot more predictable, and fully automated. And we are able to address all of your needs, from archiving to compliance to doing all kind of reporting and analytics in your system. So hopefully this webinar was valuable and provided insights to you on how you are able to address all of those needs in your environment. And for those of you attending this webinar, we offer a complimentary DB analysis. And and there we can present to you what is your ROI of doing this initiative in your environment, and how much savings that you can realize out of it. Our typical approach is assess, which is doing the analysis, address, which is implementing it, and then sustain. Sustain is automated. So this is the 3-step approach that you're looking at on the screen: assess, address, and sustain. And this is part of our data management factory that we offer and we work with our organization. So for those of you who want to address or take benefit of this complimentary data volume analysis, please email to Matteo Castillo and at the given email address, and we'd be happy to address those needs.
Great.
I am now going to. Yes, go ahead, Matteo. I was going to say that, but
right. Well, thank you for that great presentation. Before we wrap up, we do have a couple questions from our audience that we'll be answering. As we go over those, if you haven't already, feel free to download the handouts we provided and click the link in the chat box for what's being sent now for an early sign-up link to our next month's webinar, Blast Off to the Cloud: ERP Cloud Migration Strategies to Take You to the Moon. And like Deepak said, if you're interested in a complimentary data volume analysis, please feel free to email me, and we'll get that going. Now, Deepak, the first question we have today is from Keynes, and the question was, what is the recommended lead time in terms of months or years to implement this solution before migrating to SAP HANA? That knowing this would help with their plan for migration.
So, Keynes, there is no, I would say that, it is not a recommended time that when and how you should implement, knowing the fact that you are able to get the ROI out of those systems right away. But here is something that I'll tell you, that as I shared with you the slide where you have to define your S/4HANA roadmap, and you have to define that what would be your funding requirements depending upon the size of the system and the complexity. You want to address this initiative before you get into that zone. And those are all the executive decisions that come into play. So by my standards, if you are implementing an S/4HANA solution and you are in the initial staging of determining the sizing, you should have this thing done before that, which tells me that you're looking at maybe about year to year and a half, because it takes about 6 months even to implement all these archiving objects in your system. So you should be looking at least year and a half of lead time to put this solution together and then go towards S/4HANA implementation. Hopefully that helps you.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, my company is already doing archiving. What will it take to switch to ILM?
So if you're doing archiving, you will find that you have to convert the existing archive files into an ILM compliant format. So you have to define the life of those archive files. So the good part is that SAP provides you with a conversion process. So what you have to do is, number one, deploy the ILM solution in your system, build the retention guidelines and map them into SAP. And after that, run those conversion programs for the existing files, archive files, to make them ILM compliant. And your future archive runs will already be ILM compliant in your system.
Thank you, Deepak. The next question was actually asked by a couple people, and it was, do I need a third-party storage solution to implement ILM?
And yes, great question. And early on, it was a requirement. Till 2019, ILM required third-party solutions. Now the things have changed. There is not a requirement. You have to be at a particular support level, and I can send you that information for those of you who are interested. If you are at support pack and patch level, you can now do ILM implementation even in the file system. And I'll be happy to share those details. So it's not a requirement to have a third-party solution anymore.
Thank you. And finally, our last question for right now, or at least that we've received so far, is we are moving to our system to the cloud. Can ILM still be implemented?
Yes, absolutely. So consider the fact that SAP ILM, especially for retention management in your active platform, is an add-on. So no matter where your system is, whether it is on-premise or whether it is on cloud, this solution can be deployed right away. And it is, we have deployed these solutions on HEC, on Azure, on GCP environment, also on AWS. So not a problem at all. Now the next question, or sometime I'm being asked that, hey, we are in the process of moving to cloud. Does it make sense for us to implement this solution even before that? It absolutely does. We are doing a lot of these data migration initiatives where we say, look, if your system right now is 5 terabytes and you have to move to cloud, imagine the amount of complexity and migration it's going to take you to move that data, 5 terabytes of data, onto cloud. What if you are able to compress the data, reduce it by 50%? So let's say that you are able to not say 50%, for simplicity's sake, we say we reduce your data to 3 terabytes and, from 5 terabytes. Now you are moving that 3 terabytes of data into cloud. Your archive files will not be 2 terabytes. They get compressed by 80%. Your archive files will be only 400 gigs. So now you're only moving 3.4 terabytes of data into cloud. It's going to be much more simplistic because archive files are write once. It's going to be much faster because now it is only 3.4 terabytes. So I have given you a very simplistic example, but if you look and you go more into detail, it makes perfect sense to do these activities even before you move to cloud.
Hey, Deepak, you're getting some feedback in again.
I'm sorry, Madhu. Is it better?
Deepak, we still can't hear you. While you get that sorted, we actually do have another question coming in from Chris, and the question is, can I archive to AWS when my system is on-premise?
Matteo, can you hear me okay? And the answer is yes, you can implement archiving into AWS depending upon S3 storage or Elastic storage that you use, and yes, you will be able to. So it seems like maybe Matteo is having audio issues, but if you're able to hear me fine, I think good. And I really thank you for attending this webinar, and hopefully you found it valuable. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to address that. Please send us an email. We'll be very prompt to address all of those questions for you. Thank you for your time again, and have a wonderful day and a great weekend.